I knew something was off the morning I realized I was holding my breath just to keep the peace in my own home. It hit me in this small, stupid moment, standing in the kitchen, waiting for the toast to pop. How tense my shoulders were. Like I was bracing for something. Like I'd trained myself to expect criticism before I even opened my mouth. I'm a grocery store cashier. Simple job, honest job. I like the routine. I like the regulars. I like feeling useful without needing to be flashy. My boyfriend Tyler works construction. Long hours, lots of complaining, constant aches. I get it. But over the past year, he'd stopped talking with me and started talking at me. The difference was quiet but sharp, like a paper cut you don't notice until it stings. It started small. Comments tossed out like they meant nothing. You wouldn't understand. You don't do real work. Must be nice standing around all day. You're too sensitive. Chill. I'd laugh it off at first. Everyone vents. Everyone slips up. But then the tone changed. The digs kept coming, and they weren't jokes anymore. They were little reminders that he thought he was better than me, stronger, smarter, more important. And somewhere along the way, he started treating everything I did like an inconvenience. If I asked him to take trash out, he'd mutter something about nagging. If I bought the wrong cereal, he'd act like I ruined his whole week. If dinner wasn't hot enough, he'd push the plate away and grab a frozen burrito like that somehow taught me a lesson. The thing is, I'm not dramatic. I don't need grand gestures or roses or baby I'm sorry speeches. I just wanted basic respect. A please. A thanks. A moment where I didn't feel like I had to tiptoe around someone who supposedly loved me. One night, the disrespect crossed a line I couldn't ignore. I had just finished a long shift, short-staffed, nonstop rush, my back screaming, and when I walked in, the apartment was exactly how I left it. Dishes piled up, clothes on the couch, trash overflowing. Tyler was on the recliner, scrolling his phone, eating chips, crumbs everywhere. He didn't look up, didn't say hi, just muttered, "Took you long enough. You forgot to pick up soda." I reminded him, gently, that he never asked. He scoffed. "I shouldn't have to ask. Use your head." That one landed like a slap. My jaw clenched, my eyes burned. I swallowed it because I was exhausted and because starting a fight felt pointless. But then, as I quietly cleaned around him, he waved his hand like shooing a stray cat and said, "Move! You're annoying me!" Something inside me clicked, not snapped, not exploded. Just clicked. A clear, calm, icy shift. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I realized, fully and finally, that I didn't deserve this treatment. And if he wasn't going to change, then something else would have to. I finished cleaning, took a long breath, and felt a new thought settle in. I'm done letting him talk to me like I'm nothing. I didn't know the exact plan yet, but I knew this. Tyler had gotten way too comfortable disrespecting the one person keeping his life from falling apart. And comfort was something I could take away quietly, carefully, and effectively. Once I noticed the pattern, it was impossible to unsee. Every comment from Tyler had this edge to it, like he wanted to remind me where he thought I stood. He'd call me kid when he was irritated, even though we were the same age. He'd correct me on things he didn't even understand. He'd roll his eyes whenever I talked about my day, as if bagging groceries somehow made me less of a person. The worst part wasn't even the words. It was how normal it had become to him. He'd insult me with the same tone people use to say, "Pass the salt." No hesitation, no awareness, just routine disrespect, like I was a piece of old furniture he didn't bother noticing anymore. One afternoon, I got home early. I walked in quietly and heard him on the phone with his buddy. At first, I thought he was talking about a coworker or some neighbor he hated, but then he said my name, full name, like introducing a punchline. "Bro, she's not dumb, but like, she's simple, you know? Doesn't get things unless you spell them out." I froze in the hallway. He laughed. "Nah, I'm not being mean. I'm just saying she works at a grocery store for a reason." I stood there with my hands shaking, my throat tight. I hadn't cried from anything he said in months, I'd gotten too used to swallowing the hurt. But that one hit different. It wasn't frustration. It wasn't stress. It was who he thought I was. And hearing it out loud made it real. When I stepped into the living room, he didn't even look embarrassed, just annoyed I'd walked in. He waved at me like I was interrupting real business. "Babe, I'm talking. Chill." That was the moment I knew I wasn't imagining the shift in him. He genuinely believed he was the prize, that I was lucky he put up with me, that he was the backbone of the relationship, even though I did most of the cleaning, the cooking, the bills, the planning, the remembering. The imbalance had been growing, slowly, quietly, until the scales tipped hard. That night, while I made dinner, he kept criticizing every little thing I did. Why I chopped vegetables too slow, why the chicken wasn't seasoned like his mom did it, why I was breathing loud when he was watching TV. At one point, he walked into the kitchen, nudged me aside with his elbow, and said, "Just let me handle it. You're hopeless." Hopeless. It wasn't even loud. He said it softly, like stating a fact, and something inside me stopped fighting the hurt and turned it into clarity. I wasn't dealing with someone who was stressed or overwhelmed. I was dealing with someone who disrespected me because he thought I'd never push back. He relied on me for everything, but treated me like I was nothing. And that was when I decided I wasn't going to argue with him anymore. I wasn't going to beg for kindness. I wasn't going to explain basic respect to a grown man. I was going to let him walk himself straight into the consequences he'd earned. Quiet, clean, methodical. He wouldn't see it coming, not because I was sneaky, but because he never imagined I was capable of anything more than the simple girl he described to his friends. The breaking point had passed. Now it was time to think. I didn't rush anything. That was the key. Tyler was predictable, careless in all the ways someone gets when they assume the other person will always clean up after them. I'd spent months keeping our life in order while he complained about how tough everything was for him. Now I saw that as leverage. The first part of my plan wasn't dramatic. It was simple. I stopped doing the small things he never noticed until they were gone. No more laundry magically folded. No more groceries refilled midweek. No more reminders about rent dates or dentist appointments. No more meals waiting when he got home. The silence of my effort disappearing was louder than any argument could have been. At first, he brushed it off. He assumed I was in a mood. But when a few days passed, he started to unravel. Tyler hated responsibility, not because he couldn't handle it, but because he'd never had to. When he opened the fridge and found it half empty, he stood there staring like someone had robbed us. "You didn't go shopping?" "Nope," I said, flipping a page in my book. "You always go on Tuesdays." "Not this Tuesday." He huffed and slammed the door, but didn't say much else. He actually went shopping himself and came back annoyed, complaining about prices, lines, coupons, and how nobody knows how to bag anything right. I just nodded. Next came the bills. I'd always managed them because he constantly forgot. So I simply didn't. I paid my half. I left his untouched. When the electric company sent him a warning text, he stormed into the living room waving his phone. "You didn't remind me!" "It's your bill." "You know I forget." "That's not my job." He didn't like that answer. His voice got sharp. He tried to guilt me, intimidate me, talk down to me, all his old tactics. But I kept my tone flat, calm, steady. Nothing he said stuck anymore, and that scared him. The real core of my revenge was even simpler, letting him reveal who he truly was to the people around him. Tyler always bragged to his friends about how, on top of things, he was. How he handled business. How he was the practical one in the relationship. So when he started slipping, missing payments, forgetting errands, losing track of appointments, they noticed. His buddy Jake asked me why everything seemed off. He'd known me long enough to see I wasn't the problem. I didn't badmouth Tyler. I didn't complain. I just told the truth when asked. I stopped doing his share of the responsibilities. He's handling things himself now. Jake raised his eyebrows, nodded slowly, and didn't push further. But word travels fast among people who work and ride home together. 30 minutes in a pickup truck can spread a story across a whole friend group, and Tyler hated looking incompetent. The final piece fell into place one evening when he came home furious, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled. "You talked to Jake?" "He talked to me." "You made me look stupid." I looked him dead in the eye. "You did that yourself." He opened his mouth, ready to fire back, but nothing came out, because he knew it was true. He'd built this image of himself as the tough, capable one, and now that the actual work was in his hands, he was crumbling. That silence, that moment he realized he couldn't blame me, was the quiet victory I'd been waiting for. And I wasn't even done yet. The turning point came on a Saturday morning when Tyler finally dropped the act. He stood in the doorway of the kitchen, arms crossed, staring at the sink full of dishes like they'd personally betrayed him. "You need to start helping again," he said. Not asked, said, like issuing a command. I didn't even look up from the counter where I was packing my lunch. "I've been helping," I replied, "with my half." "You know what I mean," he snapped. "All the stuff you used to do." I zipped my lunch bag, set it aside, and faced him. Calm, steady, grounded. "That was never extra help, Tyler. That was me carrying the house." He scoffed. "Oh, please, you're exaggerating." So I listed it. Quietly. Clearly. Every chore. Every bill. Every errand. Every favor. Every moment I'd stepped in to cover for him when he forgot something important. Every time he'd dismissed the effort as bare minimum. His face changed. Not angry. Cornered. Like someone suddenly realizing the story they'd been telling themselves didn't match reality. When I grabbed my keys, he stepped toward me. "Where are you going?" "Work?" He blinked like he forgot other people had schedules too. "So that's it? You're just done?" "I was done a long time ago," I said. "You're just finally noticing." The truth settled in the room like dust. Over the next week, the fallout hit naturally, without me forcing anything. His friends made jokes about how he couldn't run a microwave without help. His foreman chewed him out for showing up late twice because he overslept with no one to wake him. His mom called me asking why Tyler sounded so stressed lately, and I simply said, "He's managing his own responsibilities now." I didn't shame him. I didn't trash him. I didn't twist anything. I just stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own behavior. And in that space, where my labor used to shield him, his own disrespect boomeranged back at him. The last night we lived together, he sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the floor. No yelling, no accusations, just this exhausted sigh. "I didn't realize how much you did." "I know. I didn't mean to make you feel small." "But you did." He nodded slowly, eyes glossy but not crying, more like he was finally seeing the wreckage. "I'll do better," he said. But it wasn't a promise. It was a wish for things to go back to the easy version of us, the version where I carried the weight and he pretended he was the strong one. "I'm moving out," I told him gently. "I need peace, not promises." He didn't argue. That told me everything. I found a small room for rent 2 blocks from the store. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Clean. Quiet. Nobody rolling their eyes when I breathed too loud. Nobody treating me like an assistant with a heartbeat. A week after I moved out, Tyler sent a long text apologizing. Not dramatic, not manipulative, just honest. He said he was embarrassed by how he acted, and now that he was doing things alone, he understood how much he'd taken for granted. I wished him well. Truly. Because revenge wasn't about ruining his life. It was about reclaiming mine. The real moral wasn't fire or fury. It was this. When someone builds their comfort on your silence, the most powerful revenge is removing the labor they never respected. I didn't destroy him. I just stepped out of the shadow he thought I belonged in. And life feels a whole lot lighter in the sun.